and all that. But you don't ever see broken bones. You don't ever see parts of a giant salamander skull laying in a box somewhere. You never see casts and, casts that are half colored. So I just put all that stuff on display. And since I'm an omniologist, since I'm interested in everything, I collect a lot of buffalo bones. I collect cow bones, dog bones, cat bones, you name it, because they all tell you something. And what you can know about buffalo, you can know about dinosaurs. And I know a lot of paleontologists, they just step over good buffalo bones, even mammoth tusks. They step right over because they're not cool enough. We need a big dinosaur. Oh, yeah, but, look at what I found out. I've collected hundreds, if not thousands, of buffalo bones. I record their depth, the context in which they've been buried, and try to figure out how they got buried. And what it tells you, I can tell you, this is one of the points of my museum. Because of having worked with so many buffalo bones in so many places for so long, I can tell you how they got buried. And I can tell you that Texas didn't used to be a dry desert like it is now. You go back 1,000 years, 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, and this was more like it was a lot more humid, a lot of rain, slow rains. And another thing you notice about buffalo bones, I've never found a skull with the jaws attached. I've found jaws together. I've found skulls. I've never found a skull attached to the skeleton. I've found some backbones attached, and you find a lot of complete hind legs. Well, what this tells you is that's because they died natural deaths. They're struck by lightning, killed by wolves, disease, or something else, and the long, slow rains moved dirt in over them after they were partially scavenged, and the hind legs stay together because there's not much to eat on that, so they stay. They keep their integument. So that is totally contrary to how you find dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are almost always, well, not always, but they're always in great shape. They haven't been weathered. Many times their jaws are stuck to their skulls, with the teeth all still in the head. And oftentimes they're laying on their side with their neck curved backwards, which shows they smothered in mud. They lacked oxygen, and they smothered. Well, I've been all over the Rocky Mountains over there in the western slopes, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Texas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, South Dakota, etc. And I know by virtue of friends a lot more dinosaur areas. What it all says is these things were buried in massive flowing mudslides. And it's all around the world. The entire dinosaur strata is one flat layer laid down by water on top of another, with either whole animals or entire herds, up to 10,000 animals in one place. One place there are 10,000 duck-billed dinosaurs alone in this one area. I excavated in an area that was same thing. It was about a 3-foot thick layer of disarticulated bones, but they were in great shape. So they were buried. They deteriorated, and a few days or weeks later, they were in a big mud flow underneath a lot of pressure, and the bones sorted out. And when we come along and dig them up, you find categories of bones together. I found a place in Colorado that I call the half-mile site. It was a layer of rock 3 feet thick. About 20 feet of it was exposed back in the mountain, and it went for a half mile, and 1/3 of the strata was bones of crocodiles, allosaurs, sauropods, turtles, and all sorts of things that aren't supposed to be together. At the end of the half mile, it went into federal land, so I stopped looking, but I could see it. The bones kept going because we don't collect on federal land. So what I try to show people is, look, most dinosaur fossils are buried in flowing mud. And a lot of the horses, cats, dogs, and things like that you find up in South Dakota, North Dakota, they're basically buried in mud flows due to volcanic episodes, vast volcanism. And on top of that, you've got mammoths and horses and bison, big ones, sometimes wolves and turkeys, and they're using about 10 feet, under about 10 or 20 feet of sand and gravel, and they're almost never petrified. So those things were buried. There was apparently a tsunami that came up over Texas several thousand years ago, maybe a couple thousand years ago, and it came all the way up to here.
Oh, wow.
And buried mammoths by the millions all over the place, from places like Waco. There's tens of thousands of mammoths buried down there. I've stopped at a lot of sand and gravel places in Texas. You're almost invariably going to find a mammoth bone in there, or a bison, or a big horse bone. And there's a pattern there. It took me a long time to see these patterns. But dinosaurs answer to a massive worldwide flood. The ones after that answer to earth movements and volcanism. And then the ones more later answer to giant tsunamis as the continents somewhere sank or rose up or something and sent big tsunamis of water over.
Now,
so I've got all that in the museum, and that's the point is we don't have to have whole animals that are real glamorous. All these parts of them, these broken parts, that's where the story is.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Out of curiosity, how far was the ocean away from where, you figure maybe a tsunami came in?
During the time of the dinosaur, there was an ocean called the Lost Sea. It goes from Canada all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of Texas. And there's a wide expanse in here, 100 or so miles wide. And dinosaurs lived in here, sea creatures lived in here. Apparently there were a lot of shallow areas because the dinosaurs and with all the fish got buried in here, the same stuff. The ocean, I worked on a mammoth site down at Clute, Texas, Lake Jackson near Houston. There was a sand pit really, and they dug down about 35 feet, I think, and 15 feet below the top of where the grass was, there were all these mammoths and bison and horses, and they were disarticulated as though it was a camp where they had been butchered. Some of the bones had been laying around a long time, and they weathered and had, when they got buried, they took on black mineral, and the rest of them were just brown. If you lowered Texas, these things are, okay, they're 35 feet down and 15 feet below sea level. How in the world does a mammoth butcher camp get buried 15 feet below sea level? Well, you've got to drain the ocean. You've got to drain the ocean at least 15 feet. When you do that, you're going to be able to go 40 miles off out in the Gulf of Mexico, same way in Florida. And there's human habitations out there. So, okay, where was all the water? If here's something I've seen a lot of paleontologists avoid, like elephant in the room. If you have a worldwide flood and 2 miles of strata of mud caked up all over the world, well, that drained the oceans pretty much. And so as that water drained out over the centuries, it finally filled the oceans back up. But in the meantime, mammoths and humans and everything went on and lived out there, grazing out in 40 miles out now. Well, as the water rose, as some of the continents, moved around, or mountains began to be built, the big tsunamis would come in and just bury all these things in the sand they were standing on. And they're still there today. I know it, I know people think it's some sort of religious deal, but there's no way to explain it so short of a worldwide flood, and that's only a few thousand years ago. It's not millions, and there's reasons I could tell you for that. Then after that, the Earth was still shifting around. The continents had been split, and they were moving around kind of like a train coming, to stop them. They'll be moving a mile an hour, but you can't stop it because there's so much power there. And as the continents began to shift around after the big flood, mountains built up, which caused the topography to change inside, like America. We didn't always have the Rockies here. In fact, I don't have it written down anywhere, but a lady told me, she says, well, the Indians say they saw the Rocky Mountains rise up. Well, okay, that wasn't 30 million years ago or 3 million years ago. That's about maybe 2,500 years ago, maybe less. And you mean the Rockies rose up that soon? I go, well, we've got gravel down here in Texas. Where I am, you might find something as big as your hand, a big cobble that's all worn out. But most of it's, thumbnail-sized gravel, and that's why there's many gravel pits here. As you get on down to Houston, it's just sand and pebbles. You trace it back up to, up to Colorado. The gravel up there is as big as a Volkswagen, but it's gravel. And then it gets on down to New Mexico. It gets smaller and smaller. So what it says to me, there was this giant water evacuation off the surface of the earth, which ripped up rock layers when they were still soft. They'd just been laid down, tumbled them into gravel. Of course, they fell out first, which is around Colorado. It kept on coming on down, and New Mexico got bigger gravel, and Texas gets all the sand and gravel. That's what would happen if a vast layer of mud washed down southeast towards the ocean. That's what you find. And the little earthquakes we have nowadays that tear everything up, they're nothing. They're nothing compared to what was happening back in a couple thousand years ago in the past. They may get worse, but so my museum just discusses all that. I've got a whole ostrich that this guy died on his property, broke his neck. I've got him all rendered out. I just haven't mounted him yet. I've got a cow, like a Hereford cow, with a baby skeleton inside of her. I collected the whole thing. And I don't have that on display yet, but I've got, a lot of variety. It's not just all the cool dinosaur skulls and all that. I show that, the old idea that I was taught in school was everything was simple and got more and more complex and bigger. I go, well, that didn't accord to the fossil record, for crying out loud. Look at these salamanders. They were like 10, 12 feet long. The average was 7 feet long. They have a skull 17 inches to up to 36 inches long.
Oh, wow.
It's sculpted. Yeah, they're sculpted. They look like something out of a 19, Art Deco. Their breastplates, it's like art. They have more fingers and toes than we do. They have or toe bones. They have bones in their tail, and their teeth, they have like 100 teeth. These teeth, they call them labyrinth teeth. If you cross-section one, I have one in the museum there that's, you can see the cross-sections. You can see the anatomy of the cross-section tooth. It is so complex. There's more anatomy and design in that tooth, one tooth, out of 100, more than there is in all of a human's teeth. And they can replace their teeth like crocodiles today. You break a tooth or one gets too long or something, it falls out, another one grows in its place. And they might have had hundreds of, or maybe thousands of teeth in their lifetime, because out here in these beds, man, there are teeth scattered everywhere. They're beautiful shape, although most of them turn black or brown. This whole idea that things went from little to big and simple to complex, that's why I show the museum. Look, that's just completely not true. Witness the giant humans, for crying out loud, that nobody seems to want to talk about. Here's giant humans. Not only are they twice, 3 times the size of a man today, they got more fingers and toes than we do. They apparently knew technology that could move these enormous rocks and fit them beautifully together, like places in Peru and other areas. Where's the giant 15-foot tall monster man fit in with a monkey to 6-foot tall man lineup? It's ridiculous. It's just plain ridiculous. In fact, if the converse is true as well, the little people they found over there in the Flores Islands, here's these little people 3 feet tall. Oh, they're just so amazed. This must be an ancestor of man somewhere in the monkey lineup. No, fellas, have you never heard of Colonel Tom Thumb? He was a circus performer back in the 20s and 30s, I guess. Colonel Tom Thumb was about, I think, 18 or 20 inches tall. He was a normally proportioned person. He was a human being. So why don't they put him in the little monkey to man lineup, which is, every time I see that, I get furious. It is so wrong and so stupid, and it's been so discounted for so long that anybody that puts that in a book or teaches that for a man's history is just, they're negligent or deliberately telling people lies. It is not true.
Well,
we did not come from monkeys.
Well,
we act like them.
Well, yeah, we do. A lot of people do. But it's one thing. Mary Joyce runs a